Okay, so what I was saying is co-ownership and fractional ownership, the two terms are kind of interchangeable. We're calling my clients' properties co-ownerships now instead of fractional ownerships, but it's going to be the same concept. We can go on to the next slide. So before we get started, I just wanted to point out basically what I know about fractional ownerships. So I have less than a year's experience with fractional ownerships, but I wanted to share with you guys basically how my clients do their fractional ownerships because we have a few listings coming up. And we wanted to make sure that the team knows how to answer questions, how to convert leads once they start calling about the new listings. So over the last 9 months or so, I've sold 7 co-ownership shares in North Coast Village at the same condo, 303. Right now we're preparing to list a cabin in Lake Arrowhead, which is going to be a 1/6 ownership. That one's probably going to go up today or tomorrow. And we have 2 co-ownership condos coming up in North Coast Village, probably towards mid-August or early September. And everything that I talk about today is going to be specific to the way my clients, Nelson Family Estates, do their fractional ownerships or co-ownerships. Different companies or different investors that structure fractional ownerships might have specific rules or different ways of doing things. One, for example, is in the operating agreement for my clients, they don't allow short-term rentals. Other companies that do fractional ownerships or that set up these operating agreements might allow them. So there's going to be certain things that are different depending on who's setting up the co-ownerships. We can go on to the next one. So what is co-ownership? In this case, for Nelson Family Estates, co-ownership is the concept of equally owning a home with 5 or 7 other people. So there's always going to be, it's either going to be a 1/6 ownership or a 1/8 ownership. So you'll be owning the condo with 5 or 7 other people. The home is owned in an LLC, and each owner is assigned a certain number of weeks during which they can use the home. So everyone is an equal owner. You own either 1/6 or 1/8, depending on how many shares the condo has. If the condo has 1/6 or is a 1/6 ownership, then each owner gets 8 weeks a year, 2 weeks at a time on the rotation. And we'll break down the calendar a little bit more here shortly. If it's a 1/8 ownership, then each owner gets 6 weeks a year, 1 week at a time on the rotation with everybody else. All of the expenses are split equally amongst all of the owners. The home is professionally managed and turnkey. So basically the owners show up, they use it, they leave, cleaning crew comes in, takes care of everything, and then the next owner comes in. And the shares can be sold pretty much just like any other piece of real estate. So if somebody owns it for a year, they no longer want to live in that destination, or maybe they want just to sell it and get their money back, then they're able to hire a real estate agent, sell it on the open market, and move on. So this is the calendar breakdown. Like I said before, 1/6 ownership, each owner gets 8 weeks a year, 2 weeks at a time on a rotation. So we're going to use the 1/6 ownership as an example. So each ownership is numbered 1 through 6. So if I were buying into a co-ownership and Nick were buying in Rich, I'd be owner 1, Nick would be owner 2, Rich would be owner 3, etc. So all of the ownerships are numbered. And then the calendar just goes in order. So I would get my 2 weeks, then Nick gets his 2 weeks, then Rich gets his 2 weeks, until it goes through all 6 owners. Then it goes back to me and it starts over again. So it's just 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, resets. And that's just how it keeps going on a consistent rotation throughout the year and throughout the years. So here's an example with Nelson Family Estates' fractional ownerships. the start date is on Tuesday, and then the end date is 2 Tuesdays from then. So if I were to go in on Tuesday, the 7th at 4 p.m., I would then be checking out 2 weeks from then at 10 a.m. The unit gets cleaned between 10 and 4, and then Nick would come in at 4 and start enjoying his time. So that's how the calendar works. It's totally turnkey, pretty much. I leave, cleaner comes in, Nick comes in, and then it keeps going. If you add up those weeks, so that would, if you add up the weeks, 8 times 6, it would end up being 48 weeks. There's 52 weeks in the year. So those other 4 weeks, 1 week out of the year, usually with Nelson Family Estates, it's the week after Thanksgiving. They shut down the unit for deep cleaning. So they'll do like carpet cleaning, any major maintenance that's been backed up, pretty much anything major that they aren't able to take care of in those few hours between owners. And after that week, the rotation continues. So each year, one owner will end up with an additional 2 weeks. But it should be a different owner every year. So every year, one owner gets an extra 2 weeks. Move on to the next one. And so expenses are all split. Co-ownership is ownership. So it's not like a timeshare where maybe like a corporation owns the property and covers certain things. You are an equal owner to the property, so you share in all of the expenses that come with the property. So anything related to the property, utilities, property management, HOA fees, tax, special assessments, cable and internet, cleaning, maintenance, anything that has to do with the property. Anything that has to do with the property is split equally amongst all of the owners.
So even if, let's just say you're in and you're leaving out and then it's getting cleaned for Nick, but I'm not there, so
Yeah.
I would still pay for that cleaning.
Yeah. So you would still pay for that cleaning service because at the end of the year, it all splits equally. Yeah. Maintenance, along with that question. So maintenance, if it's typical wear and tear, then it is still split amongst all the owners. But of course, if someone breaks something, then that specific owner who broke it or whose guest broke something would have to pay for that. You're not splitting anything that somebody else breaks. The way that the expenses are collected with Nelson Family Estates is you can either, so they'll give you an estimate of what they think the expenses are going to be for the year. For example, our last one in North Coast Village was about $6,000 a year. So you can either write a check up front for $6,000, or you can do 2 checks throughout the year, or 4 checks, 1 each quarter. And at the end of the year, they total up all of the expenses. If you overpaid, they can hold on to that difference for next year, or they can refund you. If you underpaid, then of course they'll bill you for the difference. And because it's an LLC, you do get an IRS K-1 form. I'm not too familiar with that form, but I think it breaks down the income and expenses for the unit. There would be no income because it's not a rental, but you should be able to write off the expenses that you put out for the unit. Move on to
I have a question. Is there a reserve set for capital expenditures? If anyone comes in and all of a sudden.
Not yet. So they've been doing it pretty much as it happens. So if a repair is needed, they'll ask all the owners to pitch in. Everything is totally remodeled and brand new, so nothing should happen right away. But like if one of the appliances were to give out or something and there's no warranty on it, then the owners would all split a new fridge or whatever it is that broke down.
And then how does it work? Let's just say you get in and you're like, man, I want a bigger TV or I want a different color couch or something. How does that work?
So at that point, you pretty much have to work it out with the other owners. So you can ask management to pitch it to everybody. Say, hey, what do you guys think about getting a different couch? Here's the one that Rich is suggesting. And the owners can either say, yeah, we're down to split that couch, or no, we don't really want to spend on the couch right now. And it would just come down to a vote. So if the majority wants to do it, then you can do it. If they vote against it, then you're kind of stuck with the couch that's there. So who manages the property? Like I said, it is turnkey, so everything's done for you. There's a management company that, like I said, holds votes if certain owners want any changes. They pay all of the expenses. They make sure the cleaners are doing their thing. They make sure maintenance is getting done. If it's a Nelson Family Estates property, they continue to manage it afterwards. They're no longer owners. They have no say in what actually happens with the property. But they facilitate everything for the owners. The owners, if they feel they don't want to work with Nelson Family Estates anymore at a certain point, they can vote to get a different management company. But yeah, that's what management does. They make sure it's turnkey. They make sure that the owners can just show up, enjoy their vacation, and then head out. Yeah, here.
So as far as paying the bills, do that check that they pay, like, whatever the amount is quarterly or something, is that the HOA is basically what I'm getting at? Is this NFE pay, they pay monthly?
Yeah,
HOA?
yeah, they pay everything. So they'll pay the HOA, utilities, cable and internet, everything related to the property. Yeah. So it's pretty much like a manager for a short-term or long-term rental. They handle everything for the property so that the owners don't have to stress about it. And like I said, the owners can always choose to get a different management company. My clients did have a property in Newport that they did back in 2018. Those owners actually did vote to hire a different manager, and it's worked out fine for them. So it can definitely be done. On to the next one, please. Before I talk about resale, I realized I didn't put a slide in about how to actually buy the fractional ownership, but it's a little different than a traditional sale. So there's no escrow period. It's basically just two forms. There's the purchase agreement, which is 2 pages long. It's almost like a bill of sale. And then there's the operating agreement, which lays out the ownership percentages. It lists all of the owners, how much they own in the fractional ownership, and of course, all of the rules, how the property is operated, and what you can and cannot do, such as renting it out short term, or maybe switching out furniture, stuff like that. So it's about a 30-page operating agreement and a 2-page purchase agreement. Your clients sign both of those. They wire the funds to Nelson Family Estates, and that's it. It's recorded sale.
So what happens if you have one of the owners and they have family and they're coming into town and they're like, hey, why don't you guys just use this? We'll let you guys use it. You guys stay there on our weekend. Or
Yeah, that's fine. So as long as the owner knows who it is, they're not generating income from it.
Yeah.
It's fine. Basically, the point is to try to keep wear and tear down. So somebody who's renting, they're not going to care about the property. Of course, they might scuff it up, or kids might break something. And unlike an Airbnb where you maybe buy some furniture at like IKEA or something and put together the Airbnb, these fractional ownerships are actually, they try to use higher end furniture, higher end carpets. It's like a high end remodel, so they don't want a ton of wear and tear on the property. Okay. Yeah. So as long as you know who it is and they're responsible, it's fine. Now, when it comes to resale, they've had a few, Nelson Family Estates has had a few examples where the owners do resell their share. And it's been relatively easy for them, of course, because of the market that we were in, where things were selling quickly. But over in Newport, these two owners bought their share for $285, I believe. They ended up selling it, one for $350, one for $375, after having used the property for about 3 years. So they got their use out of it, they sold it, made a little bit of a profit.
So now when they go to sell, how does that work as far as, you've got the other owners, are they involved in who comes in? Do they do like an interview process as to who they are? Or?
Currently, there's no screening process.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no screening process yet. They haven't had an issue with it just yet. their thinking is most people, I guess, who can afford, because it is an all cash transaction, so this won't be financed. Most people who can afford to put this much money down are most likely not going to be an issue. And it's worked out for them so far, but they are considering putting in some sort of screening process where, you know, either management screens them or the owners get a say in who comes in. It's just when it's selling from 0 shares, there's no owners to start approving the first few.
And then since it's all cash, like say like I buy in at 250. Now I want out, you know, let's just say I'm in for like a year or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're now gonna be moving to do something else. So I want out, I want to sell. How do you come about the price? Like, do I just decide how much I want to sell my share for, or
Yeah.
and then do I get the profit that, or like how does that?
Yeah, so there's no fees to sell your share unless you hire, well, you're not gonna hire an agent, but unless the buyer or the seller hires an agent, then they would pay their agents. There's no fee to the management company, there's no fee to the other owners. But at this point, since there's no real way to get comps, then yeah, it is just kind of up to the seller to decide what they want to sell it for and see if the market's willing to pay it. Because of the market that we were in, those last 2 owners were able to get more. In today's market, I'm not even too sure how I would price a resale right now.
So when something like this is for sale, you're not paying to the homeowners that are already existing there, right? So where does that money go? That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's like,
Yeah, so initially, Nelson Family Estates owns every share because they set it up.
Okay.
So you're buying the share from them first.
okay,
Yeah, so they own, like in the cabin that I'm gonna post today, that's gonna be 6 shares. So currently Nelson Family Estates is 100% ownership. They own all 6 shares and they're gonna sell them off one by one.
so then once those shares are sold, and then we're all like, let's just say we're all owners here.
Yeah.
And then it gets down the road, and I'm like, okay, I want to sell. But then do I go to Nelson Family Estates and say, hey, look, I'm selling, and I know I bought in at 250. I'm now going to put this on the market for 350. And when, let's just say, you know, because I'm not an agent at this point, I'm going to go with you.
Right.
And then you sell the home for 350. So Nelson Family Estates, they don't see any of that money that I just sold, right? It all comes back to me, and then you get your share, is that correct?
Right.
And then the new owners come in, and then how does that go about with the new owners after, like, I sell mine? Now they've got to go in through Nelson Family Estates
Right.
to get everything set.
Right. So now Nelson Family Estates will set them up, like if there's fobs or, you know, keys,
Yeah.
whatever. Unless you hand them over, Nelson Family Estates can get them for them.
Okay.
If you already prepaid your expenses for the year, then they'll be prorated. You'll get a refund for what you didn't use. And then the new owner would be responsible for paying their first year of expenses to Nelson Family Estates.
Or could you even include that into the sale and say, hey, look,
Yeah.
I've already prepaid up to blah, blah, blah. This is included into the sale. The
Yeah, I'm sure it's
price
workable.
reflects that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they could work that out. But yeah, so like I said, we've only had 2 examples for a resale so far. They went pretty smooth. Nelson Family Estates didn't even find out about it until the sales were done. They just gave them the new contact information, and that was that. But I'm sure we're gonna probably be seeing some more coming up soon.
So these are all cash deals. It's basically, like you said, like a bill of sale.
Right.
There's no escrow period.
No escrow period.
So it's basically a transfer as far as like the wire goes.
Right.
And then that's it.
That's it. It's a done deal. So they record, let's say you want to hold it in your LLC, Rich LLC. They'll add your LLC to the operating agreement, so to the properties LLC, and it'll show you as a 1/8 or 1/6 owner in the property, and that's it. So that operating agreement signed by the managing member, signed by yourself, is your proof of ownership in the LLC.
So there's no title or escrow involved.
No title or escrow, no. They are trying to work that in right now, with the cabin. They did, go through title to, pretty much try to section it off into 6 ownerships. They haven't been able to finalize that just yet, so they're still doing it the old way. But because the LLC is the owner, so the LLC holds title, the LLC owns the property, and then you're a member in the owning entity.
I'm sorry if you said this already, but where are these listed, the fractional ownerships? Did these
On
go
the
on the MLS? They do?
Yeah, they go on
Okay,
the MLS.
this is like it would just be whatever you're
Yeah,
paying for
so,
that, your portion.
right, yeah,
Okay.
so I list them pretty much just with the price of the share.
Uh-huh.
Haven't had, excuse me, haven't had an issue yet. So the MLS did flag it once because somebody said it was a timeshare, but I pretty much just talked to support, let them know what it was. And they said, oh, you're right, it's not a timeshare, and they reactivated the listing.
So what makes this not a timeshare?
So timeshares, it's my understanding, it's usually more than 10 people, and you're not an actual owner in the property. It's a corporation that owns it, and they're pretty much selling you time. In this case, you're an actual owner of the property, and you're just breaking up your time with the other 5 or 7 owners. So you're not buying time, you bought into the property and you're sharing it with others.
If someone's not able to use their time, are they able to give that time to the other owners?
Yeah, so that is one thing that they, that certain owners have done. So they'll sell their week to another owner.
So they would sell it, so that would that
yeah.
be considered them renting?
No, because it's another owner, so they kind of let that, they're okay with that. They just don't want it out on like Airbnb or VRBO as a rental, so that it won't be random people coming in and using the property.
What are fees like for that in that case? That's a good question. So let's just say, like, we had a week or the 2 weeks that we were gonna go, then we realized, oh my gosh, something came up, we can't.
Uh-huh.
We offer it, we throw it out to the other owners. Another family comes in and says, yeah, we'd love to take that.
Uh-huh.
How do you go about the pricing for that?
I'm not too sure, honestly. I don't know what they've charged. I would think you would base it, maybe base it off of short-term rental rates, but I can ask Nelson Family Estates, see how they've priced that in the past. Or it could just be up to the seller, like maybe they just name their price and say, give me this much for my week or for my 2 weeks, and just come to agreement on it. There's no fee through Nelson Family Estates to facilitate it. It's just like the sale. So you just let them know owner A is gonna take these 2 weeks. They'll be there instead of me, and that's it.
And then are they able to, let's just say down the road, some of the owners start to become frequent with each other, like, and then so let's just say the Smith family reaches out to the Rodriguez family and says, hey, we're gonna be out of town, blah, blah, blah. Would you guys be willing to take this time with us? Yeah, we are, man. Well, we noticed that you guys are at this time and that's when we're gonna be in. Are you guys able to trade with us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. So at their Newport property, all of the owners actually got each other's phone numbers and they had a group chat going. So they would switch all the time. Like, hey, I see you have 4th of July. I have Christmas. Do you want to switch? And they would switch amongst themselves. Same thing. You would just let management know so they know who's going to be there in case of an emergency or something. And you can switch between all the owners as much as you'd like.
When you put it in the MLS, what property stuff are you doing, condo or do you do co-op or?
Right now it's just standard. So if it's a condo, I'll list it as standard sale condo. That's the one that I said was flagged last time. But after speaking with the MLS, they decided that standard sale was more accurate than timeshare. So they let me keep it as a standard
In
sale.
the description, you obviously have to put, not even, not the comments or the description, you put it, it's a fractional.
Yeah, and in the private remarks. So I'll make it really clear to all the agents in there, this is a fractional ownership, this is how it works. Contact me for more details. So yeah, we make it really clear. People don't necessarily read it, but
Yeah, you probably get a lot of calls
Yeah.
for like 300,000. People are like, wow, what a deal.
yeah, people actually think that a beachside condo is 300K.
Yeah, I've gotten that quite a bit. Calls on like fractional ownerships, one over in Oceanside. Just
Yeah,
got like 7 calls from like 7 different people, like, oh, can I buy this? I'm like, it's fractional ownership. They're like, what's that? I'm gonna have to go and explain it to them,
it might have been mine. Yeah, we got
Probably.
blown up last year because
Probably.
people wouldn't read the description. They thought the condo was 263 on the beach.
Yeah.
They're like, what's wrong with it? Is there a foundation issue or what's going on? I'm like, it's fractional ownership. We can go on to the next one. I talked about that a little bit there. So these are kind of the questions we've been talking about. Can I rent it out? You cannot. But because the owners make their own rules, if once, there's 8 owners or there's 6 owners, once it's completely sold out, if those owners want to vote and allow renting, they can definitely do that. So it's, once all the owners are in place, any decision is up to them. They can all get together and say, we want to be able to rent out our weeks when we're not there. Is everybody in agreement? Great. And just do an amendment to the operating agreement. What if someone doesn't follow the rules? So if somebody isn't paying their expenses, or maybe they're damaging the property, not listening to management, management will of course try to smooth things over with them, but unfortunately, it can ultimately become a legal issue. So it's kind of like owning a rental. You can tell your tenants to follow the rules, but if they don't, it's going to ultimately end up in eviction. Same thing here. There is the possibility that it could end up in legal action trying to get an owner to comply with the operating agreement. Haven't had it happen yet, but.
So what happens with the expenses at that point? Let's just say that there is a family that is, showing negligence to their part of the bills and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
Now, does that weight from them not taking care of their responsibility now get put on to the other owners, and now they've got to take on that much more responsibility?
Yeah, it would. So if Nelson Family Estates were still majority owner, I'm sure they'd cover most of that. They're pretty good at covering things when it's a hiccup on their end. But if it's fully owned already by 8 different people, Nelson Family Estates is just the manager at this point, then those owners would have to pick up the tab for attorneys if needed, or for the expenses that are going unpaid, to make sure that the HOA doesn't start charging fees if it's not getting paid or whatever it is.
So then another question is, let's just say I've got a house, I've got a really cool area, and I want to sell it, but I don't want to sell it like a full sell. I want to do something like this. So do you have to first put it into an
LLC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then move from there, and then you're the one collecting the money.
Right.
So and the reason I'm asking is because, if I have someone that just comes in and says, hey, Rich, I want to sell my home. And it's like, okay, well, have you maybe thought about, because they're like, I'm thinking that this would be a cool way to do short-term rentals or whatever, in this location. Like, okay, well, what about doing something along those lines here with fractional ownership?
Yeah.
Have you thought about that? It's a way for you to get back your money and then some, and then still keep the home for your 2 weeks. Can that person also be part of the fractional owner as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can definitely pitch that to people. I actually had one person who got my phone number from my note for my listing, and they have a duplex in Carlsbad that they wanted to fractionalize the top floor and keep living on the bottom. So I connected them with my clients, and they're talking about it. I don't know if it's going to come to fruition or not, but they're considering it. But it's definitely something you can pitch to them. Say, well, what if you fractionalize it? It's super customizable, so you can do 3 owners, 4 owners, 2 owners, as long as it's not 10 or more. I believe that's when it's considered a timeshare. Then you could definitely just create an LLC, break up the ownerships, create some rules, and go ahead and
And
sell
then
it.
so you create the rules, you've got it all there, but then you've got to have it legally binding, obviously. And then you go out to hire a management company. I mean, is it like
You don't have
need
to.
have a management company, or do you just say, I own this, I'll get to it when I get to it?
Yeah, you don't have to hire a management company. The Newport one, where I mentioned that they let Nelson Family Estates go,
Yeah.
they just hired some individual guy to take care of the property for them. So you can hire friends, you can do it yourself. You have somebody you know do it, you know.
So if the owner of the home actually, okay, so you got the owner of the home, they fractionalize it out. And then the other owner's like, man, we noticed that things just aren't kind of getting done, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you know, Tom over here said he was gonna do it, you know, and he's not doing it. So can they vote to say, hey, Tom, you're out.
Yep.
We're putting in, we voted, we want a management company.
Yeah.
So not only that, but you're gonna also pay too. Is
Yeah.
that how it works? Or-
Yeah, as long as the majority votes to do it, then that's what's gonna happen.
But Tom's like, oh, this is my house. You know,
Uh-huh.
It's our house.
Yeah, exactly. It's not his house anymore.
Do all owners have to be? So Northwest Village, for example, let's say it's 160. Do all 6 of them have to be sold before the immediate?
No, so you can start right away because Nelson Family Estates owns the other weeks. So it's pretty much just vacant when the new owners aren't using it. So if there's one owner there, 7 weeks or 7 ownerships still belong to Nelson Family Estates, then that owner will keep, doing his rotation. And then during the other weeks or during the other ownerships, it's pretty much just sitting vacant, or Dave and Doug from Nelson Family Estates can go by and use it, or they can let, their family use it or whatever in the meantime. And that owner, if the other 7 shares still aren't sold, that owner is still only paying 1/8. So from the beginning, you're only paying your share. Nelson Family Estates covers the rest of the expenses until they get the rest sold.
So if that's the case, let's just say out of 5, and there's only 2 that are actually sold, and there's all that extra space in between there, can the other 2 say, hey, look, notice that no one's actually bought in yet? Can we use some of those dates?
Yeah.
How does that?
So they can switch their weeks. They can't get more weeks.
Okay, it's just a switch.
Yeah, but they can switch. So if they say, I see nobody's staying there this 4th of July, I want to come by with my family, can we switch these weeks for those weeks? Then they can switch them. Also, the sooner you buy in, you're able to select which ownership you want. So if you see that the ownership that has 4th of July or that has Christmas or whatever is still available, you can select that ownership number. You don't have to buy number 1 or number 2 in order. You can buy whichever one has the dates that you want. Of course, next year it's going to have different dates because of the rotation, but at least this year you get to use it on those days.
Does it rotate out after the year's done? So whoever was number 1 now goes to the back of the pack, and then who was number 2 goes to 1, or does it always stay? I was the first
It always
one
stays the
buying
same.
it, I'm always gonna be the first one
Yeah,
buying it.
you're always number 1, but just the way the weeks line up with the rotation, it's always shifting by like a week or 2 each year. Yeah, so if you have 4th of July this year, you probably have the week after the next year, and then it just keeps going in that same rotation. We talked about this, so if someone breaks something, that person is responsible for it. Management would charge them for it. So if they broke a lamp or something, then they would get charged to replace or repair that lamp. And any questions from Zoom?
Anybody out there?
I have a question. Since it's
No
here,
questions here.
What are the additional things that you may be able to request, like, visit property? See what's one of the water. Am I bringing my own sheets? Am I having it all set up for me? And I have to stop with any favorites or steps and things like that? Is any of that an additional service that Nelson?
So they don't provide additional services right now, but they'll take the largest closet in the unit and they actually turn it into a split closet. So they'll create like a space for each owner. So if you have like special sheets or something that you want to leave at the unit for every time that you come back, you're able to leave it there as long as it fits. So like some people will leave certain dishes or pots and pans or special soaps or whatever it is, so they can use it every time they come by without having to travel with it.
So if you, let's say I've got a home, I want to fractionalize it, but I also have a garage separate or a shed off to the side. I want to fractionalize the home, but I want to keep the garage for me.
Mhm.
Can they do that, or does that be like,
You
no,
can
it's
just-
part of the property, it gets split down for everybody?
I think you can do that. I think you would just make it part of the operating agreement that, let's say you're owner one owns this percentage and full or sole access or sole ownership to the garage.
Okay,
Yeah, so since you're creating the fractional, you can pretty much customize the operating agreement to however it is that you want it. Yeah, it might make it a little less desirable, but I don't think people are really gonna care about the garage as much when they're just coming out to vacation for a week or two. Because like with most Airbnbs, you don't get access to the garage anyway. Any other questions, guys? Oh, let me hand out this flyer for
I
the
think
cabin
Nancy
app
said
coming up.
She had a question.
No. I think she did. No, she doesn't.
Martin, I have a question. This is Cherie.
Yeah, usually.
Hi, did you give any examples of what the management costs might be on an average property? So like this one in Oceanside, what are you looking at? And are they monthly?
Yeah, let me get closer to the mic here. So for the Oceanside properties, expenses for the last one were about $6,000 a year per owner. I don't have the expense list with me, but the management fee was $1,500 a month for Nelson Family Estates. And that was part of the owner's $6,000 a year each. So it was $1,500 a month for the management fee, and then whatever the bill was for SDG&E. HOA in North Coast Village was $645. It's going to go up to $800 as of July 1st. And cable and internet, I believe, was included with the HOA. And I think those were all of the expenses for that unit, but I can get you an expense sheet. I'm actually passing out this flyer right now for the cabin that I'm going to be listing. I'll send Liv an electronic version. Is there any way for us to get this to everybody? Maybe through Slack or something?
Yeah. Okay.
And then I'll give everybody an expense sheet too, so that once we start getting calls about it, everyone has the breakdown for the cabin. If those are all the questions.
Oh, okay.
This is just a little plug. Bianca, my girlfriend, and I, we just started our vacation rental management company. We are offering a referral fee to agents who refer people to us, and we get a signed contract. So we would appreciate any referrals. And that's it, guys. Unless anyone has any other questions.
I like the logo.
Thank you.